Let's talk about Enterprise Connect a little bit. So, we had a number of clients that we advised, companies like Mitel, Poly, Zoom, Microsoft, Neat, a number of others that that we work with, or that we've had at our events. And there's a bevy of other clients, customers, technology companies. Enterprise Connect is kind of an interesting, it's sort of an interesting intersection of like old school AV integration, which by the way, I did forever ago. I somewhat tend to leave that in my history, but unified communications AV and really modern big techs. You got companies like Microsoft and Cisco at scale, at EC, talking about the biggest, broadest distributions of future of work. And then you've got these kind of niche technology companies that are making headsets and handsets and one-off whiteboard integration solutions there as well. So you're still kind of dealing with this remote work. What's the future of work look like? This sort of dichotomy. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Microsoft Work Trends Index later. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. But what we have at a macro level is that we have this new world of work that kind of came out of the pandemic. We've got these companies that are all sort of vying, whether it's Poly, that talks a lot about room equity, whether it's Teams, Salesforce with Digital HQ, WebEx with kind of trying to be the center of a working environment of asynchronous communication. You've got the fact that appliances, Pat, are kind of coming in and out of vogue. You and I have got the bat phones, our Cisco WebEx, Pro devices that we love to use for meetings because they're just a little bit more engaging and a little bit more personal. You're seeing companies come into this space trying to kind of say, hey, we're outfitting rooms, we're outfitting huddle rooms. We're trying to implement and add AI technologies to enable more intelligence in the room, better noise cancellation. How do I work in a Starbucks while doing a meeting on my phone? And that's some of the solutions you've got coming out of these things. Some other things too, Pat, that are in focus, by the way, are digital events. One of the big awards, Zoom got a runner-up or a first place award from Best of Enterprise Connect for their new, I think it's their events platform. So you're seeing some of these companies, you got WebEx doing events, Microsoft's pushing towards events, Zoom is pushing into events. They're all looking at how do they offer this hybrid work experience, this hybrid event experience. I think you and I would agree we're massively less productive when we travel. And I think companies know that. So, there's a lot of things kind of happening concurrently. You have, one other area to mention too, coming up big is the contact center. So Enterprise Connect has always been big for contact center. You got the 8x8s, the 5.9s, the Ring Centrals, all there. Of course, Zoom's launched a contact center solution. Cisco's been a legacy for the longest time in that space. Amazon made some announcements, by the way, at Enterprise Connect as well. So, as I said, you kind of look at from meetings to collaboration to rooms to in-person to contact center to customer experience. All of it was sort of covered in Enterprise Connect. And then, of course, you've got this legacy of AV providers all the way to this pure on software future run by IT companies. So it's kind of a bigger event than it necessarily gets credit for. But I think to some extent, we kind of have to evolve and zoom out a little bit from the micro of implementing a control system in a room to do a meeting to, hey, meetings are ubiquitous part of our life. The data is where all the value is at. And you got companies like NVIDIA, which we'll talk about next, Pat, that are building collaboration software powered by AI that are going to actually be the core and intelligence that are going to allow us to have great meetings in the future.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal breakdown for not even being physically on the ground at the event. And there's only so many events that you and I can go to. I know I was worn out on the road for the previous 5 weeks, and I needed a break. So I caught everything that I could, and I really liked your breakdown, particularly of the different kind of vendors, which is all the way from folks that have millions of on-prem users like Mitel to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, cloud native, no on-prem companies like Zoom. And then, it's funny, AWS and Google reared what am I trying to say here? Reared their heads as well.
Rear their beautiful heads. Sometimes people say rear their ugly heads, but that's not what we're saying here. So.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And you might ask, well, why is this such a hot space? Well, first of all, we're completely changing the way that we work. We're going from remote. Well, we're going from pre-COVID to 100% remote. To getting to it, I think is incredibly harder, which is hybrid. And if you can remember it, go into the office the first time you can go back and sit in one of the conference rooms and tell me how the experience is, or be remote where somebody is in a conference room, multiple people in a conference room, and then tell me how good you think the experience is. And I would say that I'm expecting a complete overhaul of this market once people get in and realize that their experience sucks. The other reason is the amount of data and the amount of analytics that you can gain by looking at even the audio data. It is absolutely incredible. I know people are enamored with video, but the depth of knowledge you can get from applying artificial intelligence, let's say UCAS of 5.9, right? Laying in automation to be able to know when your customers are happy, to know when they're sad, to know when you should automatically move them to something, to automatically know what the person in the call center auto-magically shows up on their screen. That's super important. And, let's face it, call center experiences are probably one of the lowest customer sat scores on the planet, probably next to the post office. So there's a ton of room to go there. Good event. I really need to go next year.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I mean, we definitely put a few folks on the ground, and I expect that we'll have some coverage out of some of the takeaways. But I do think it's a zoom out macro moment right now, and I think we're going to hit that later when we talk work trends from Microsoft.